Hello and welcome to Today in the News on Vanguard Live. My name is Precious Chukudi and I have with me my co-host. And we move straight to the front pages of the papers this morning. It's a good Friday though, you know.
Very. Thank God it's Friday.
What most workers will be looking forward to is Friday. But then let's look at what the papers is saying this morning. We're starting off with Vanguard. And main headline says, no more foreign medical trips for Buhari. Senate warns. The rider says 1.3 billion naira proposed for the State House Clinic in 2021 budget. 1.3 billion naira inadequate. Federal government says presidency keeps more. Nothing on ground to convince us they will comply. NMA insists government officials going abroad for treatment should do so with their own money. We have a photo story of Owando's Ijora gas plant on fire yesterday. And stories above, we have why I preferred Yar'Adua to Falale for president in '93. Obasanjo says you can see that on page 10. On page 4, hashtag EndSARS, how Abuja police murdered my sister on eve of a NYC passing out parade. Witness says police bullet crippled me. Victim tells Ogun panel. Page 27, we have the whispers. Tiwa Salvage sets tongues wagging again. Looks like a very sultry picture. And on page 9, U.S. knife edge election as Biden takes lead. We also have the second wave of COVID-19 in Europe. $40 oil benchmark for 2021 budget will suffer setback, says federal government. And we have driving increased access to electricity. You can see that story on page 7. And still on page 8, we have a hashtag EndSARS. We are fishing out rogue elements in police, Buhari says. And lastly, on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper, we have 65 countries for Abuja Art Expo. You can see that on page 10. And away from the Vanguard newspaper, we move straight to the Punch newspaper.
And on the front page of the Punch newspaper, we have a Lekki shootings. Army makes a U-turn, appears before Lagos panel Saturday. And the rider says all inquiries should be directed to panel, says 81 division spokesman. SARS killed my husband, asked me to remarry. Widow tells the committee. You can see that story on page 2. On page 7, we have immigration holds on to hashtag EndSARS promoters passports. Allow Akala's biography, Obasanjo punchers and ex-governor stories. You can see that on page 8. And on page 4, fleeing suspected killer of Oyo 12-year-old arrested in Ogun. Nigeria reaching maximum borrowing capacity. That's coming from El-Rufai. And you can see that on page 23. Court dismisses Ojedu suits against Ekiti, APC's leadership. Also, staff unions attack varsity senate over disciplinary threats. And the stories above the nameplate on page 7. Cases, Nigerians, others barred from China. 6 states results hold United States presidential poll winner. You can see that on page 31. On page 9, we have 1.3 billion naira approved for Villa Clinic, too small, and that's coming from the Permanent Secretary. And lastly, on the front page of the Punch, on page 7, we have 11 billion naira padding uncovered in farmers' budget. MD disowns AG. And from the front page of the Punch, we move straight to the Guardian.
And on the front page of the Guardian, we have Senate queries Aso Villa over medical bills abroad. The rider says the lawmakers ask officials to ensure president uses official clinic. Enemy opposed restriction, says choice is personal. Biden presidency may review visa ban. World's biggest democracy suffers setback. Democrats support Nigeria's WTO bid. You can see that on page 6. And also we have on federal government Transcore sign deal to boost the national grid by 966 megawatts. Also, Nigerian film Eimofe wins the Audience Award in Spain, Best Fiction in Brazil. You can see that on page 2. And on page 3, coronavirus, Lassa yellow fever not behind Delta Enugu mystery death, says NCDC. You can see that on page 3. And away from the Guardian, move straight to this day newspaper.
And on the front page of this day newspaper, we have Buhari rallies traditional rulers to pacify youths, dispatches Gambari others to states. Governors move against restrictiveness, seek support for security personnel. You can see that on the front page, and it continues on page 4. Here, death toll from Enugu epidemic rises to 40. You can see that on page 9. And the NBA raises team to probe alleged killings in Rivers community. And you can see that still on page 6. And moving on to the stories above the nameplate, on page 5, we have a court dismissed Trump suits to stop further counting. And lastly, on the front page of this day, we have a CBN stress test reviews banks vulnerability to economic headwinds. You can see that on the front page, and it continues on page 9, and that's all on the front page of this day.
And that's all we can take on the front pages of the papers this morning. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this break.
Number reduces. So this crowd of people that you see going to loot are not necessarily hungry and angry. They are taking advantage of the collapse of law and order that came as a result of
to improve good governance and our democratic process, including through sustained engagement. We shall continue to ensure that liberty and freedom, as well as the fundamental rights of all students, are protected. But remember, one also has the obligation to protect lives and properties, as well as the right of citizens' concern about the ongoing development in Nigeria. We thank you and urge you all to seek to know all the facts available before taking a position or rushing to judgment and making hasty pronouncements. In the circumstances, I would like to appeal to protesters to note and take advantage of the various well-thought and Nigerians to go about their normal businesses. Binding citizens.
Yeah, thank you very much for all of you that called us yesterday to support us. Yes, all the shops were broken into. The one at Lekki was totally vandalized and looted by every...
Alright, welcome back. If you're just joining, it's still today in the news on Vanguard Live, and you're welcome to the newspaper analysis segment. My name is Precious Chukudi, and I have with me my co-host. And we have our guest who's joining us via Zoom. He's in the person of Mr. Dayo Akintobi, publisher of Ilupeju Today. Good morning, sir. It's good to have you join us.
Good morning, Precious. Good morning, Damilola. It's always a delight to be here with you.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about the fact that Senate has said no more foreign medical trips for the president, and the Senate warned the State House officials against the president embarking on a foreign medical trips for medical attention, and the state officials has also said that they should put the State House clinic in order. What do you think about the president's trip this time? Because when he got into power, people have been talking that the president is always traveling all the time for one medical situation or the other. Hello, Mr. Dayo.
It's no more than an, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you clearly. Yeah. Yes, I can.
Okay. It's no more than an advisory. The Senate doesn't have the power to stop the presidency from going anywhere for medical trips. The presidency has its own budget. It's the executive arm. It's an independent arm, and they choose how they spend their own money. The Senate does not have the power. They can advise, and I think it is a good advisory because I don't think it speaks to good intent on the part of our leaders for them to leave the dilapidated medical apparatus and medical environment in this country, and simply because they have the financial wherewithal that other citizens don't have, for them to now be able to go abroad to seek medical attention. I think there should be a law enacted by the National Assembly that says that our leaders must seek medical treatment here, their children must go to school here. These are all incentives that make our leaders have to fix our own country. If they have the option of being able to escape to other climes for their own purposes only, it doesn't give them an incentive to work at fixing our own country. I think it's hypocritical. I think it's self-serving for any politician, whether from the president down to the lowest councillor, to be able to attract benefits by virtue of their office, benefits that are not available to the rank and file of citizens. So if our citizens are compelled to seek medical attention here in Nigeria, I think our leaders should have to do the same as well.
All right, according to some persons, they are saying that the statement from the Senate is just a political statement without the backing of any law. What do you think about that? Because, looking at the situation of things on ground, do you think the president, especially because of there are chances that there might be a second wave of the lockdown in the country, should the president really be exposing himself like that?
Yes, I mentioned that when I first started, and it's just an advisory from the Senate. They really don't have the power to enforce the president to stay in this country to seek medical attention or any other political office holder. Also, it's kind of hypocritical because most of the Senate people themselves go abroad for medical attention. If you look at all of the people who are under trial by EFCC, they're all trying to get waivers from the court so they can collect their passports back to go and seek medical treatment abroad. So it's a double standard really from the Senate to be saying, oh, the president can't do it, when the Senate themselves and every other person does it as well. I think we need to have a law that prohibits this, part of the whole constitutional reform we're talking about, and restructuring and amending the constitution. These kind of things should be specified where it is prohibited by law, not an advisory from the Senate. A law should prohibit it. And I think it is important enough that we fix our education system, our healthcare system, our housing system. And I don't think we have a good chance to do that if those who administer our affairs are able to run to the next country the moment they have an issue. So yes, a law should be passed, and NAS should look at it. But I don't really think such a law will be passed because even NAS themselves they are the biggest offenders of this type of thing. Everybody's looking at the presidency because we know when President Buhari is out of the country on medical leave. But when the last time the senator or any senator went, did we hear it in the news? Yeah, they're going every day too. So I don't think there's much incentive for NAS to pass such a law, but it would be good if just from a moral perspective, from a servant, I'm a servant of the people, and as such I will not either take an oath to or we should affirm to, that we will hold ourselves to the same standards and make available the same options that are available to our constituents for ourselves as well.
Okay, let's quickly talk about the police force. So, President Buhari said yesterday that efforts were being made to fish out rogue elements in the Nigerian police force. I want to ask you, what do you think about that? Do you think it will be successful?
It depends on how strong the political will is. I think personally that the entire police apparatus needs to be overhauled. I don't think it's just one or two rogue elements here. That's not to take away from the police officers that are good, that are law-abiding, that are really all about service. But I think the entire police culture, right from when they are in police college, I think the culture is noxious. I think that the way they come up from the bottom, I think it's inculcated in them certain bad practices. So I don't think it's a matter of just fishing out one or two here or there and you think you've revitalized the entire force, because I think it's in their DNA to do certain things. Remember that the police have to protect themselves as well. In order to be able to serve us, they have to make sure that they themselves are at all times protected. So they are taught how to apply violence, they are taught how to apply force, they are taught how to use weapons. So it's a natural instinct and a natural tendency for them to have some degree of violence in their blood. I also believe that the corruption that's in the legal system of Nigeria is deeply permeated into the police force. So I think this is beyond fishing out one or two people that you may be aware have committed infractions in the past, when everybody is a ticking time bomb. Every police officer in Nigeria today is a potential brutalizer, is a potential bribe taker, is a potential every negative that you can come up with. Every police officer is a potential perpetrator of these deeds. It's just a matter of having the right trigger and they're off. So I think it requires a systemic overhaul, not just fishing out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bad eggs who have been seen to have done wrong when all the others are potentials waiting to happen. We need a systemic overhaul.
Okay, now, of course, this being said is as a result of the EndSARS protesters' demands. Still talking about their demands now. The presidency said its chief of staff would lead senior government officials to various parts of the country to interface with traditional rulers and the people, especially youths. I said that they've heard the youth demand, and of course they are working on it, and actions are currently being taken. Now, what I want to say now, do you think now, with these demands being met and them working on it, do you think the government, the youths, can now trust the government once again?
There's massive distrust of the government at this point in time, but this is a good first step. It's a good beginning, because at the end of the day, all protests lead to the negotiation table. All protests, all civil disobedience, all acts of defiance and opposition to constituted authority, they all end up at the discussion table. So I think it's good that the government has said, look, let's engage with the youth, let's engage with admonition that these are not people we can toy around with. These are not people we can make empty promises to and not fulfill them. So I think there's a good faith effort on behalf of the government, and I would counsel the youth to give them benefit of doubt. The reason it pays to give benefit of the doubt is the youth now know their power. They now know that they have the power to mobilize massive number of people in a very short period of time. So if government sells them a bogey again and doesn't do what they promised to do, it's very easy to mobilize again. So only way forward to make progress is when there's dialogue between those who want change and those who will implement the change. So they've now created the environment for the dialogue to occur. Let's let the process flow and see what comes from it.
All right, let's just talk about the U.S. election. That's Joe Biden and President Trump. And, the lawsuits were launched by President Trump on presidential election that has not yet ended yet. What do you think about the lawsuit that was launched by President Trump?
Well, it just speaks to the messiness of democracy, and it also speaks to the fact that a democratic process has various avenues of intervention and redress that you can seek. Because at the end of the day, in every democracy, justice, equity, and truth are the key tenets of every democracy. So, the best democracies in the world give you the avenues to seek redress if you think you've been, if you think an injustice has been done to you. So President Trump is saying, well, I think an injustice has been done to me. In America, if you think an injustice has been done to you, the way you go about seeking redress is through the courts. Unfortunately, a very efficient system in that country. Look at it, they filed a lawsuit within hours. It was heard, it was researched, it was defended in hours. So that's the people know. I hold no brief against President Trump having sought that redress, and I'm glad that the justice system stood up and did the right thing and said, we've examined your grievances, we find no merit in them, we are dismissing your case. I think it would have been worse in a circumstance or in a democracy where he could not have sought that redress, because he will continue to scream for the rest of his life that, oh, I was cheated, oh, they counted ballots I shouldn't have been counted, oh, they did this, did that, but the court has told him you are wrong, and the matter ended there. As soon as the court has told him that, he has shut up. Maybe he will now go and try and find a different court to cry to for a different basis. One day he will run out of courts, and he will run out of them soon enough, because there are only so many issues he can complain about.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Dayo Akintobi, publisher of Individual today. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
All right, remember that you can equally like, share, and subscribe on all our social media platforms showing on your screen, as well as you can go on our website to check for our top stories, www.vanguardngr.com, to find out more. Till we come your way next time, of course, enjoy a fabulous weekend, and then see you on Monday. I remain Precious Chukudi and my co-host. Thank you for watching.